is because of the memories that it gives me. And all the stories we tell and all the things that we talk about that we love and get us going, it's the memories of the happy times and the extraordinary experiences that cars have given us.
Yeah. Honestly, we should quickly patent this before we put this broadcast out on Fridays.
That would be my dream gadget.
How would that work in your car, Manish?
Well, I mean, it would take a while to learn, of course. 10, 20, 30 years to work out my top 2 bits of music. But
hello and welcome to the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. This is the 19th episode. So said Paul Hardcastle. Get it? Yeah, nice little reference there. Isn't that a great tune? First on the agenda this week, in the first of an occasional series that we'll try and build during the year, I've asked my learned podders to choose a vehicle for £3,000 that you think might go up in value or might be something that you'd like to have. What it can't be is something you just lob away and never ever acknowledge the value of. £3,000 is a sum that we agreed on a little WhatsApp group. And the reason we agreed it is that the next time we do this, it's going to go up by £1,000. We might do it every single week. So by the time we get to week 25, you do the maths. We could be dealing with different things. I also used the word shed in the description. I slightly regret doing that. At the moment, at £3,000, we probably are dealing with sheds. But when we get to £25,000, we won't be dealing with sheds. That's the longest description of something that didn't need describing I've ever been involved with. I seem to have injected myself with some Chris Cooper. Wait there. Oh. Now.
That's my boy.
And because I've been so hurried, Chris, you can go first. By the way, he preceded this by saying, I've so won this. So he better do well now.
I have so won this because you wanted an actual advert.
Yep.
In other words, this has got to be something we can go and buy. I've got a joke one and I've got a real one. The joke one is one of those.
Oh
no.
Chrysler Cruiser convertible.
Has to go up, Chris. Has to go up.
It's more
got to look at it again
than shed, granted.
Yeah.
But the winner already is that. It's an actual advert. Look, I've mounted it on everything on cardboard.
What is it? A Z4?
It's a Z4. It's a 2004 BMW Z4.
Yep.
It's manual, 3-litre SE.
Yep.
It's done exactly 100,000 miles.
Yep.
It's being sold by a gentleman or a lady person, it doesn't say, in South Shields, in the wonderful northeast of Englandshire, which for those of you not in the rest of the UK, is sort of in the middle of the overall British Isle somewhere. Yeah, exactly, Neil, up there, exactly, and just slightly to the right. It's got great words. It says here, the 3-litre I is very smooth and a joy to drive. I've owned and have had lots of BMWs, and the Z4 was the only version I've not owned, and it did not disappoint. I've already bought this. It's just wonderful, isn't it? Good cars, words of wisdom, good cars are now becoming harder to find. This car is mechanically in great condition for its age. This is the shed bit. Bodywork could do with attention as scuffs and scratches, open brackets, if I'm being honest. He's from South Shields. He's nothing else other than being honest. Close brackets. Tyres are good. MOT done recently. He's the 4th owner. He wants, what was the price limit again, Chris? Just
£3,000.
£3,000. 2,998.
Yeah.
I give you the winner.
Okay, I think that's a really good place to start. And there is some parallel thinking going on with my choice as well here. So I'm going to go straight to Manish now.
Oh, I think we're kindred spirits on this. I think I have the Mercedes equivalent. I found a Mercedes-Benz SLK. It's the 2.3 SLK 230 compressor, one owner, Chessington, 40 6,100 miles,
Cheers.
navy blue. With
year?
it's on Auto Trader. I've got the link. It's
How
on
much is it?
2,999.
Show me a picture of it now.
Bastard.
But Auto Trader.
Oh, for
29.
God's sake! Let me have a look at. Let me see this closer.
Oh, that's the wrong 230 though.
No, is it?
No.
No, that's the right one.
$3
Is it the
grand.
later one?
It is.
Yeah,
It looks
that's
like
the
a
right
later
one.
one to me. So you've got
What
the
year?
later
What
one
year is it,
guys.
Manish?
Sorry.
What
Right.
year is it?
V-Reg 2000.
Oh, God, it is the right one as well.
Compressor.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay,
That's all
right.
good.
So I'm afraid to say, I now have to go with my choice because Manish has totally done me over here. Like a rapscallion he is, because I chose exactly the same car. I went for a smaller engine, a 200, and the reason I did it was
You went for the prettier one.
I went for the pre-facelift because
Yeah.
when I did a bit of googling, it was a Bruno car, and I just suddenly thought you could buy for £2,995 a Bruno Sacco Mercedes Benz. It's one of the best proportioned cars they ever made. And I've driven the little compressors. They work really well. They're slightly in the era when the steel wasn't quite so good, but this one is described as being pretty good. It's gendered, so it's described as a she all the way through, which I always find deeply reassuring that you're dealing with someone who lived in the Middle Ages. And the vendor, I think, is called Barry, which I think is a trustworthy name as well. So
Or it's maybe in Barry.
yeah, it could be in Barry. I don't really want to be in Barry, but I think Manish, you're bang on. I mean, when you look at them, they're such beautifully proportioned cars, aren't they? And I could do without the manual gearbox. So at the moment, both of us have outranked Mr. Cooper because I don't. Okay, are you going Bruno or Bangle? Which beer are you having, really?
I mean, that's unfair because you want both.
Oh,
And for £6,000, you can have them.
I've got my advert mounted on cardboard and everything.
okay. Do you know what? That shows a commitment to the cause that we.
And I also cut and paste. I also cut and paste down the side here.
You
The little blurb you put on the bit where you had to click on the advert to see what the blurb was. Honest, sir, I did my homework.
You did. Neil Clifford, can you beat any of us or not?
Yes, I can, because I've gone for the non-hairdresser decision.
Oh, no, you can't say that because we're going to get told off by people.
No, let me finish. Let me finish. I've gone Italian. I've gone.
I thought you said non-hairdresser.
No. This is. It is that, as we know, you don't have to spend a lot of money to have a cool car, and the Alfa Romeo makes a statement to anyone else in the world that you know what you're talking about. You value cars. You value automotive things. It was my second car. As soon as I had like 500 quid, I went out and bought an Alfa 1.5 Ti, Alfa Sud.
Yeah.
So here we go. 1996, Alfa Romeo Spider, 2 litre, the thinking man's choice, in my view, because you can afford to run it as well as own it. Twin Spark, there it is, just to prove it exists. 130,500 miles, 2950, with comprehensive service history, including recent time belt replacement within the last 10,000 miles, late registered car, actually. And he's owned it for 14 years, and credit must be given for the way this car has been cared for. Gleaming bright red paintwork, charcoal cloth, thinking man's choice, could be possibly one of the nicest examples out there and well worth viewing, complete with spare key and red key with a Sony DAB radio. Please contact me with any questions. I think I would personally rather drive around in that than the choices you guys have come up with, because I think you just look a bit cooler in an Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
I think we really have smashed it here, team. I think every single one of these is fantastic. And
They've all gone convertible, interestingly.
I know, and I have to say, it's made me think I'd like any of them, really, when the first sun comes out in the spring. And the best thing is that when inevitably Niels doesn't start, one of us can give him a lift home.
Yeah.
I think that's a lovely way to start this week's podcast. We will be moving on to the £4,000 challenge next week, and you'll see those adverts up there now. Please call the vendors and see if you can negotiate a cheeky little deal. This was interesting. I think it was last week or the week before, or maybe it was before Christmas. An organisation called Emissions Analytics was reporting in the news, and their spokesperson, Nick Malden, that there was a suggestion that VED, vehicle excise duty, or what we would call tax, should be decided according to weight. Now, this made me sort of do that dance. That is it to one of the characters in Blackadder does when they list his behaviours. You first of all you're very happy, then you cry in the corner. That sort of schizophrenic behaviour. Because on the one hand I smiled and thought finding some common sense. Then the real ramifications of this struck home, that we're dealing with a bunch of legislators that have led car manufacturers so far down the wrong path, and now they might have separate bodies that are speaking common sense. So for me, you persuade car makers they have to make very heavy hybrid or electric vehicles. You allow customers to want SUVs, and then afterwards you go, actually, we're going to tax them by weight, because weight's a really good way of reducing emissions. And all of us are thinking, yeah, we sort of said that 20 years ago. If you'd said you couldn't have vehicles over 1,100 kilograms, we wouldn't need hybrids right now, because the net effect would be the same, and there'd be a lot more cobalt and lithium still in the ground. So I thought I'd propose to my learned friends here whether they think this is a good idea, a bad idea, and I'll allow for once us the chance to suggest what you might do or how you might determine a fair way of taxing vehicles. Let's go to Chris Cooper, who is chomping at the bit.
Well, this depends on whether we believe that road tax, vehicle excise duty, should be a hypothecated tax or not. I'm sure you're all with me on that. I had to look that up, the spelling of that earlier on. Basically, the tax that's collected is then purely allocated to the tasks. The road tax was originally in the UK collected to maintain roads. That hasn't been true for about a gazillion years. That's all bollocks, that whole thing. Well, I pay my road tax. Cyclists don't pay road tax. Well, nobody pays road tax. It keeps the roads going. The idea of weight is quite interesting, isn't it? Because if you had I was trying to think what the heaviest, reasonably popular car recently has been. It's probably the Discovery 3. Remember when the Discovery 3 arrived? And it had that famous twin chassis?
Yeah.
2,700 and something kilograms. That's more than two Alpine A110s. I quite like the idea of weight, actually, because at some point there's a baseline, isn't there? So a lighter car, I think you get money back. So if I was a Caterham or a very light car, if you put the baseline at, say, 1,200 kilograms, and weight beyond that, you started getting more and more. Below that line, I think you get money back.
But isn't it fascinating that if you did go down that route, when you go to try and tax your 2.5-ton Tesla, suddenly you think, well, this isn't the best thing to have bought. You could see that this will not happen, because I think it would further kill, if it needed killing, the switch to electric in this country, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
it would. Yeah.
I mean, there's a kind of a misplaced hypothesis in here that somehow the weight of a car is a bad thing for the road.
Yeah.
Well, there are lorries and everything on it, and that, blah blah blah. So, but you've got to find, if you think the idea of taxing cars works anyway, then actually weight isn't a completely daft way. If there was a baseline below which goodness of behaviour and lightness of cars, so it might mean we're all running around in very nice light cars and we get money back.
Right,
So
not a bad
win-win to
idea.
me.
Neil Clifford, what do you think?
Well, it sort of sounded as though it was a good idea, because I did read an article that said, weight does put so much, is as damaging to the environment than anything, because it kills the roads, the brake dust, all of that, the more stuff. But I think I mean, hey, it's never going to happen, is it? Because as you say, it will just kill the electric car. Basically, I think that's sort of the issue, isn't it? And I think, I mean, the only fair way to do it surely is on mileage.
Pay by mile.
Yeah,
Neil,
I would be very happy to do that because, because it feels fair. The more you drive, it's sort of a bit like, I don't know, France or Germany, where you're basically paying the toll. It's a toll. Your taxes on your road use. I wouldn't mind that because I would feel as though it would be proportionate to your use of the road and the vehicle. And why should someone that does 2,000 miles a year pay the same tax as someone else doing 15,000 miles on the road? But the money does, I suppose, no tax. National insurance doesn't go to the health service. None of it all just goes into one big place, doesn't it? And then gets basically wasted often. But so I think do it by mile. It'd be much. I would be happier. I'd be happy with that. I wouldn't be stressed if every single morning I had to go to a toll road and spend £3.20 getting to and from London. I'd feel like, okay, well, it's my fault.
It's fair.
Well,
The problem is then they would know how quickly you got between the tolls, and they'd know what your car was doing and what colour it was.
no, I'm 69.9 miles per hour.
Yeah, there you go.
Every single
Manny,
year.
what would if we charged you by the mile every year? I mean, you could probably drive around in a 250 GTO, couldn't you?
For sure. I actually decided that this question prompted me to actually buy a book today. It will be arriving, and it's called Critical Mass: The One Thing You Need to Know About Green Cars. And it's been written by Felix Leach and Nick Molden. Then that got me doing my usual wormhole. And do you know who the chairman of emissions analytics is? It's Eric Verdon-Rowe.
Is it?
Yes. So we've got a car man at the very, very, very heart. I mean, Eric Verdon, if the viewers don't know, he was linchpin for Haymarket for years. He was part of Evo, wasn't he? I mean, he's the car man.
I don't think he was part of Evo. He was definitely my boss at Autocar, and I think my second written warning definitely had his signature at the bottom.
No, I'm sure. But basically, he's a good guy. I'm sorry, Neil?
He sounds like a darts player from Holland.
He's also part of the Avro. He's part of the Avro family that made the Vulcan. Come on, that's more important.
So Eric's a good guy, and actually, if you do drill into the detail, it's not just by mass. It's actually they have a product. It's mass times mileage. It's actually a product of both, and that's what they were looking at. They're looking at a fairer way to tax, and their argument was exactly what Neil's just said, that mass, it's not just yes, it could. I don't think it's a product graph, but I think the point is it's a number of miles you do multiplied. There's a multiple with the mass, but the point is tire degradation is proportionate to mass, and so on and so forth, and that puts loads of particulates in the air. And what we're trying to make the world greener, we've got to look at every single thing. But the thing I like most about this is something I'd heard about. Norway has now introduced a tax on heavier cars, and France has started charging €10 supplement on petrol and diesel cars for every kilo they weigh over 1,800 kilos. So they're not doing it onto the electric cars. France is actually putting this tax onto anything that's petrol or electric over 1.8 tons. So you can see, your question was really a political question. It wasn't really an environmental one. It was, hey, we've known about this for a long time. Are they going to do it? And if they do it, are they going to screw this transition to electric cars? And the answer is they'll probably make it selective. They probably won't include electric cars. This will be something that will be almost certainly aimed at heavy diesels and petrol cars, and it will have a multiplier effect in terms of the number of miles you use.
This is why, for me, it's the right question, and it's the clever conversation, but it's being had 20 years too late, and it's been applied in the wrong area. This is not a VED question. This is a vehicle design question.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why you look back and you realise that Piech was a genius, because he did a thing called the Polo 3 litre, which you might remember in the end of 99, 2000, I think it was. he created a Polo that had very low drag, tiny, very highly inflated tyres, low friction tyres, and it had some lightweight materials, and it ran a tiny engine and could do 75 miles to the gallon. Then, of course, you have the X1,
X1, yeah.
which was his. That was PX saying, "Do you know what? This electric thing, it's all very well, but if you spend less money on very exotic materials, we can carry on using engines and we'll be just as efficient and effective." There's a load of people out there that don't agree with that argument, but I think we'll very soon have enough data to show that it's about more than just raw emissions. If we look at lifetime emissions from the time the first bolt is hewn to when that vehicle has to be dismantled, and we look at the damage to the roads, and we look at the tiny particles of rubber we're worried about from tyres. There's
Great.
a lot to be said for if you banned SUVs and every single saloon car had to weigh less than 1,100 kilograms, which would easily be possible if you got clever. It'd be a different outcome.
I think that's what we're saying here. Basically, all of us is because I'm sure Rachel Reeves, who is the Chancellor, the Finance Minister of the UK, for those listening outside the UK, had one or two little hiccups in the few months they've been in government so far. What I think we're saying is we're available to totter down Downing Street with our flip charts and easels under on our coloured flip chart pens in our pockets to run a little sort of workshop in number 11. We could do it in number 11 or number 10. I'm not fussy. The other thing I think that a weight-based system would be really entertaining for. It'd be really entertaining to see how much lighter all the VW group cars would be than the BMW or Mercedes ones. Because they're obviously really good at cheating on stuff like this. So it'd just be really good to see who's cheating the most on deciding that 3-ton car actually weighs 800 kilograms. I think that'd be worth it just to see that.
In which case, shouldn't Tom Walkinshaw be designing all new cars?
Yeah, God rest his soul.
Yeah. On the tax front, and I should know this, but someone was telling me the other day, because I haven't bought a new car for ages, new car road tax is nuts. No wonder people have stopped buying new cars if you're not a company.
Yeah.
It's
really going up from April 25. Yeah,
but it's really a lot now, isn't it? It's like thousands.
It's going worse.
Isn't something like a Revuelto £5,000 for the first year of road tax?
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah,
I think double this year.
Deary God. Okay, we're going to move from something lightweight like that onto a very serious subject, which is, what's your favourite sun visor? Obviously, another deeply political question here for people to think about. Would you want the First Lord of the Treasury to be behind it, or Rachel Reeves, or who would you like to be behind that sun visor? I'm going to start this one. There are 3 sun visors. Okay, there's the original 2CV sun visor, which is so light and so delicate and makes the most wonderful creaking noise at whatever age the vehicle is. Yeah. You reach up and it comes down. It has a piece of, sort of cardboard in it, inside this tiny metal frame. And it just reminds you that if you crash this vehicle, you are so dead, you mustn't crash the vehicle. The second sun visor belongs to, for me, the Range Rover L322, which is the split one. So you can obviously do the right-hand side and the straight ahead at the same time. And it happens to be at the perfect height. And the one, of course, the most important sun visor of all is the rear sun visor, which belongs to which car?
928.
Exactly. So I've ruined it for all of you. There we go. Chris Cooper is angry with me already.
You say that. So I had...
There he goes. The
double sun visor.
Yeah.
There's another. I mean, there's, in terms of that's a ridiculous sun visor, I love it an awful lot. And this is a bit first world, hashtag, etc. again. The DB9 and the Rapide probably as well had the most ridiculously thin and long. In fact, it was almost deeper than the hinge itself that was attaching it to the sort of the headlining of the car. Because the sort of the header of the sort of the top of the windscreen, the header, is that called the header? Was so far forward from the driver and quite low down that a normal head sun visor, if you folded it down, you couldn't have seen the road.
The screen.
So they demonised it. But I think I've actually found, and you're right, Chris, about the rear sun visor. We'll put a proper picture of this up so you can laugh at this in its full glory.
Oh, is that
Try,
you?
try and ignore whatever that creature is there
That's
just for a
you.
moment.
That's you, isn't it?
No, I said ignore it, Manish.
Okay.
This is your OnlyFans page.
So try and ignore the length of what I'm assuming were shorts rather than my underpants. Sorry for listening to this in black and white, but try and look at the car.
It looks like you are trying to insert yourself.
Now, you see, I got told off for being smutty last week about back doors.
Okay, carry on.
So for those listening in black and white, that is a picture of a W115 Mercedes 220D.
Nice.
And it's a picture of my brother and I, probably longer ago than we like to imagine when we were students. We spent a summer in Zimbabwe. And this is a picture taken just outside Harare, just to the south of Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, in the bush. And like lots of countries like Zimbabwe, because the sun's pretty bloody hot, and to stop passengers in the back seat getting absolutely roasted on the necks, they had these sort of slatted sort of sun visors in the back seat.
Brilliant.
And the reason why this is my favourite sun visor is because of the memories that it gives me. And all the stories we tell and all the things that we talk about that we love and get us going, it's the memories of the happy times and the extraordinary experiences that cars have given us. That's what we love talking about and why we do this. And that summer, I forget what year, somewhere in the late 80s, I think, that I was there with my brother. And that Mercedes, it would have been at the time about 15 years old, but it was absolutely bulletproof. It's the first Mercedes I'd ever been in. And most of the roads were dirt roads. Quite often there'd be a single strip of tarmac down the middle, and cars going either way would have middle wheel on the tarmac, other wheels on the dirt. It was a beautiful country, unbelievable people. And that little humble it might even not have been 100 horsepower.
Nowhere near 100 horsepower.
80 something?
Nowhere
20
near.
diesel, no
Yeah,
way.
probably 80 horsepower.
80 horsepower. That was just wonderful. So my favourite sun visor is the rear sun visor on that W115 220D in Zimbabwe.
Love it. Neil Clifford, favourite sun visor?
Wow. I bought a Bentley S3 Coupe, 1965. Now has a sort of slightly inappropriate name, which I won't mention. But they were regularly known as that.
Yes.
Something to do with eyes.
Yes.
But anyway, I had one of these cars. Beautiful car, to use a Ayrton Pandy word. No brakes, literally disastrous car to drive, but glass polarized sun visors, which actually, when you think that is so clever, you can't see the picture here, but the sun visors are glass. So they actually work better than any other sun visor that's ever been invented in the history of sun visors, because you can actually see through the bloody things, which is the point. But it evades the sun, so it's like wearing a pair of sunglasses. But it's just, and they're so elegant because they're really glass; they're not plastic, and you just flip them down. And I'm surely completely dangerous. Cut your head off if you had a crash, probably. But nevertheless, you'd be decapitated with such style.
With total,
you wouldn't mind.
it would be an honour.
Yeah, it would. In a Bentley with no head.
I didn't know that you had glass sun visors. See, I've learned something. It's worth it. It's worth it just to have learned that.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Neil, could you send a picture through to our little producer chap?
I will, of course. Look.
I say little, he's taller than me.
Yeah. Our little producer chap is related to you. And
I know. He's taller than me as well and much, much stronger.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Mr. Pandy, what's your favourite sun visor?
So I think I told you about my sort of adventure driving from LA to Las Vegas in the 80s in Dad's friend's 560 SEC, which I still think is just the car. The sun visor in that, I just remember pulling it out. First of all, it's the size of a cricket bat on either side. But I didn't drive all the way. We shared the driving. And I remember when I went onto the other side, I did a Lewis Hamilton. I flipped it down, and I couldn't believe that it had another panel that you open up, two lights with a very thin sliver of mirror. I've just never ever
Yes.
seen a
Yeah.
sun visor with built-in light and a mirror in the 80s. So I have a little picture of it here. Look at that.
Yeah.
bit.
Bentley Rolls do that quite well.
Come
Yeah.
on. But
Yeah.
in the 80s, wow.
No, 90s really Rolls.
But yeah, I guess it was. It was late. 80s.
I will just as a closing comment add that the worst sun visor is in the Ferrari Testarossa or 512 TR because it's a panel about that deep. And because the seating position is so compromised in the car, if you bring the sun, it's heavily sprung. So it either has to be all the way down
Yeah.
or it snaps shut like Arkwright's till.
Yes.
And basically, if you bring it down, the bottom of it is below your jawline.
Yes.
So you really cannot see anything. So what you have to do is find ways of holding it on the spring away from you. And I ended up with black tack, that sort of stuff we used to hold GoPros onto cars, holding it on the side there. Otherwise, it'd either take your fingers off or you couldn't see. A wonderful.
A Lamborghini Espada is very similar. That you sit so low and the seat's so back, and the windscreen is so narrow and so far away that you put the sun visor down, you actually can't see anything at all. No.
Chris, can I just ask you? You know the Mercedes 220 diesel. Did it have air conditioning?
No.
I just wondered.
That would have consumed half the horsepower.
I was just thinking about it. on a hot day.
By the time, so I was in Zim for quite a long time in '94. So obviously Mugabe had taken hold of it more then, and inflation was just starting to happen, and the dollar was at 12 to the pound and moving quite quickly the wrong way. And a Mercedes of that age, like yours, was still probably worth £10,000 even then, because they stopped the import of any new cars. Really, you could, but they were very expensive. So the used car market went through the roof, and suddenly families had these old Mercedes like that, and they were gold dust.
Yeah.
Absolute gold dust.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
Okay, so we're now going to move on to you're allowed to add one piece of technology to a car now that doesn't exist. What would it be? I think Neil Clifford suggested this, so I'm going to ask him first.
I did. I had a great idea with this, but actually thinking about it, I've had an even better one. Which is, you surprise yourself with your own genius sometimes, don't you?
Yeah.
No, this is a thing I actually, and we should crowdfund this and actually become billionaires. Now, it's really, in all honesty, not something in a car. But it obviously is. It is in a car a little bit. Intelligent traffic lights.
Oh.
Okay. Now, if you think about the traffic light, it ruins your mental health, frankly, when you're there. And there's, across the road, the other junction, there's no cars there, but you're still at red. Okay. You're polluting the environment without moving. You're ruining the productivity of the country because you could be moving and going to do some work, and therefore you can improve the environment, improve everyone's mental health in the whole of the United Kingdom, and improve the economy. Probably our GDP would go to at least the best in the G7
easily
by just having traffic lights that are aware of where the fucking traffic is. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. I think if you could we need Professor Peach for this, don't we?
Oh.
Because there's so many other clever things that are pointless that people have invented and become billionaires doing, right? This is a real thing that could be across the world, that it's managing, this AI thing. Why isn't AI managing the traffic? So to optimize minimization of pollution, optimization of the economy, cheering everyone up because okay, I'm on a red light, but it's fine because there's a reason why I'm here, because there's more traffic in another direction, as opposed to, for fuck's sake, I'm waiting here and there's no one coming the other way.
Yeah,
honestly,
can't they count the cars?
We should quickly patent this before we put this broadcast out on Friday.
The sad thing is that most local authorities are doing exactly the opposite. They're phasing lights to make it uncomfortable for drivers, so that
Well,
the next time you think, I won't take the car because it was too unpleasant.
but making the pollution worse.
Of course
Yeah.
they are. Come and live in Bristol. Some of the light phasing here was defined not by AI or by a computer. It was defined by a member of the Cambridge University netball team who doesn't like cars. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Manish, what would you have as your piece of tech in cars?
Well, I think we should crowdfund this as well. We tend to end this podcast with a piece of music. And when you drive, you might put on the radio, you might have a playlist that you've thought about, but whatever, you may browse. I just wondered whether somebody could come up with a very clever piece of car-only software. And what it does is it learns your driving style, it learns your routes. What it does is it basically understands your mood. And what it does is it creates playlists for you, depending on where you're going, what time of day you're going. It looks at your steering input, your accelerating brake, so it knows whether you're in a feisty mood or whether you're just there for a cruise. It's got a little bit of clever Siri-type listening. It knows whether you've got kids in the car or your wife in the car or a friend in the car, and it just learns. And you have this piece of software, and the more you drive, the better the music becomes. That would be my dream gadget.
How would that work in your car, Manish?
Well, I mean, it would take a while to learn, of course, 10, 20, 30 years to work out my top 2 bits of music. But theoretically, well, I think it'd be great.
See, if I ask that, sorry, Neil, go on.
We are going to put a 0 on your average mileage in 2025.
Listen, mate, according to you, I'm waiting. What am I waiting up? Just 26 more days or so. We think end of Jan,
Yeah,
don't we?
you're going to do, instead of 4,000 miles in 2025.
And
pleasure.
therefore you won't just have to choose Eleanor Rigby. So let's move on to Chris Cooper.
Over the Christmas and New Year break, I have rediscovered a quintessentially British sweetie candy for those living in Medica. It's a dolly mixture.
Yeah.
Remember dolly mixtures?
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're good.
Yep. So the first piece of technology, which I don't think we could get crowdfunded, would be a piece of mechanical wizardry in the car, which could open a packet of dolly mixtures and take out all the brown ones. Which aren't dolly mixtures.
Manish, we've got to fight the oppression, Manish.
But do they actually taste different? It's a bit like...
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they're cleverer and they tend to be funnier in social situations.
Do they...
I didn't start that. The bloody moderators on YouTube or Spotify. I didn't start that, okay? It was him. It was him.
Mate,
So
it's the middle of January. I'm not looking brown at the moment, I can assure you.
That is one thing. But actually, the
Can
piece
you
of
imagine the
technology
poor
that
Indian
I would-
engineer who gets Chris's specification? Take out all the brown ones. No.
Yes.
Right, that's it. He won't do it.
But the piece of technology that I would add to a car would be the piece of technology that does the following. If I'm in the car by myself and I can see on the thing it says there's traffic or there's a queue, what I tend to do is telephone my wife, Lynn, and say to her, can you go onto the internet and check out what is the problem? You look at the other routes and where they are, blah, blah, blah. So we have about a 10-minute discussion where I machine gun instructions with zero patience at her. And I expect an answer there and then, bemoan the fact that she can't make the internet go faster. I think a piece of technology that super AI'd what my wife Lynn does when I get frustrated in the car because the traffic's not moving and I can't work out what the other direction, which other route I should use. I think that would be really clever. I had this conversation with Cameron this morning when we were driving back from the Bicester Scramble this morning, very snowy and cold. And he said, that's what you need, Dad. You need this super AI computer thing that would do what Mum does when you call her saying, where should I go? What should I do?
You want an AI wife?
That's territory I think we'll go into on another podcast.
But what does she do, though? I don't understand what she's doing.
She multitasks. Apparently, that is a possible thing. I didn't know that could be done.
Yes.
She multitasks. So she has multiple devices looking for traffic news on Instagram or something as to what's happened on the
Yes,
M5
yeah.
Bristol.
Yeah,
She's looking at other systems that say what the length of delay is, looking at other routes, measuring distances, a number of whole, graphs and everything. Lots of graphs in there.
It's very
But isn't
Which takes
Google
me.
Maps and Waze supposed to be doing that for
No,
you
it doesn't
in
do
real
it.
time? It doesn't do it?
No, doesn't say to you, okay, all those parameters. What is the best option? Is it going south of Salisbury, or you want to go up towards Wiltshire, somewhere like that? What's the best one to do? And actually, because there's a queue over there, and actually this one's gonna clear. It'll be fine. It says it's not, but it's going to clear. Stick
wow.
with it.
She's good.
Yeah. Don't tell her I said that, but yeah, she is.
I think quite often technology is considered to be solutions that are clever, and therefore we feel we have to look forwards to solve our problems. When actually, I think we've maybe given up on things that were already making our lives much better. And for me, it's a very simple one. It's not within the car again. I would make it absolutely illegal for you to fill up your own car with petrol. You would create probably 10,000 jobs immediately. You'd create good interactions with people. You'd talk to people. I don't understand why we don't have it. Whenever you go to a country where there's someone filling up your car, and you give them a little tip, and you have a conversation, why wouldn't you do it? I think it's madness. I think I'd make filling up your own car illegal, and create loads of jobs for young people. Make sure they were well paid, and then they'd take pride in all the petrol pumps, and there'd be all sorts of other cool things that happen around service stations. You'd have young people involved in the whole service station environment, and good things would happen of it.
And that's where Matthew Beard started.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
He's now dealer principal of Ferrari.
Yeah.
Swindon, number one Ferrari dealership in the whole of the world, probably, is what I was told.
Don't get me wrong. I love. I really like filling up my car with fuel most of the time. I'm quite happy doing it. I just think I find it very odd when this. I'm totally apolitical, but I drive around the country seeing lots of empty commercial property and everyone's homeless. So why don't we turn those into houses? And I see loads and loads of people that don't have jobs, and I hate that. And then all I hear is we're going to have autonomous cars, and I don't understand it. I think these
it is definitely a luxury when you're, I don't know, in Sicily, and you pull over on the outskirts of Palermo, and a lovely man comes straight up to your car and says, what do you want? And there's another guy cleaning your windscreen, and it's really cool, isn't it? It's lovely. And you go and have a quick espresso.
It's a great way of giving young people some job. It's a fantastic. I worked on a forecourt cleaning petrol pumps for 2 summers, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it because I was around cars.
Yeah. When we do that workshop, when we drag our flip charts down Downing Street to see Rachel Reeves, we should have that conversation as well.
Okay.
We've got a lot to talk to her about.
We've got a lot to talk about.
No comment. So, we're recording this on Sunday, the 6th or 5th? 5th of January. It snowed yesterday in the West Country, and I gather, but it melted very quickly. It snowed in other parts of the country. So we thought we'd share with you some snow driving techniques and tips, even though we are uniquely unqualified to do so, because we don't live in a country where it snows very often. So let's attempt to do this. And anyone that listens to us in a Scandinavian country could say, you're full of shit. We don't advise you how to drive in rain and mud. So carry on. Neil Clifford, what would you do?
Oh, I've no bloody idea, is the truth. The one thing I said, because my daughter drove to Scotland for New Year, and there was a snow warning, and I'm like, darling, you've never really driven very far ever. And the one thing I said, we got the car serviced, and we checked. Did it have winter tyres? I can't remember. I don't think so. And we checked the pressures and gave her a Snickers and a blanket and a bottle of water, which basically most things are solved with a Snickers, as we know on this podcast. And that was about it. And the one bit of advice I gave to her was leave more distance. And I think that's a good bit of driving advice in general, because most accidents happen when people hit you up the arse, right? Yeah. And, that's it. And the only accident I've ever bloody had, which was in a Lancia Delta Integrale Final Edition in candy red, with the tan leather, not the Alcantara. Beautiful car.
Nice.
13,995 from George Wise or whatever it's called. I swapped a BMW E30 Sport Evolution. Fucking, can you believe that? What a muppet. I got 12 grand for the Sport Evo and I thought I was lucked in. I put a grand down and got an Integrale. Anyway, that's another story for silly things we have done with cars.
Yeah, we had that conversation earlier, didn't we? Yeah.
Oh, we did. Things we should have known, but we didn't is
Yeah.
a very, very good discussion point. Anyway, where was I? Oh, I hit someone very, very gently in Muswell Hill at a traffic lights because it was snowing, and I thought, I'm in a 4x4. I'm never going to crash. Oops.
Yep.
And dented the bloody bumper. It was very, very small, 5 miles an hour accident. So leave plenty of space was be my only advice, because if you're coming to me for driving advice, you're really in the shit.
That's harsh.
Do you know what? That is the single best piece of advice you can give to someone driving in the snow. You bang on. Chris Cooper, what would you do?
Well, again, when I was driving back in the slushy bit with Cameron today, I said, "What's the bit of snow driving technique, Cameron, that you could share with the world?" And he said, "Keep it pinned. Keep it pinned. There's the confidence and clarity of youth."
Good man.
The Integrale story is quite interesting because I wrote a couple of other things down. I think it must have gone by now, but for a while, when four-wheel drive became, after the Quattro, Audi Quattro appeared 40 years ago, when four-wheel drive hitherto had been an agricultural vehicle, kind of Land Rover kind of thing, normal road cars, let alone four-wheel, didn't have four-wheel drive. There's a sort of weird myth that somehow four-wheel drive gave your car better all-round performance. Clearly, when you're braking, it makes absolutely stuff-all difference. So don't fall into the myth of thinking that four-wheel drive will help your car brake. And yeah, we'll have somebody writing in the comments about engine braking and the rear diff and that nasal sort of voice that you can read from the comments. But
does it does help you in the snow, though?
Traction, yes.
traction.
Traction, yes, definitely. Braking, not. You need winter tyres for that. Doesn't matter what you got, winter tyres. Proper snow, I think, is really nice to drive in. I was thinking a couple of years ago, the boys and I went to Åre, middle northern Sweden.
Oh, really? I'd like to do that.
We drove from Östersund, and all the hire cars, because it's permanently in the winter, went in March and February time, so it's permanently well below freezing. So all of the hire cars at the local airport, which is quite small, had properly studded tyres. Not just winter tyres with the sipes, proper studs. And the roads are completely, they don't clear. They don't salt them, there's no point, because it's like minus a million. Proper driving on snow, I think, is really nice. With a studded tyre, it's like driving on quite a wet road. I'm sure somebody will tell me that the mew of ice is nowhere near, even with a studded tyre of a wet road. But you get my point. So proper driving on proper snow is lovely to drive on. If you ever get the chance, if you live in the warmer climes of our listenership, find a reason to go to Northern Europe where it's permanently chilly.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I've just had I don't normally do this, but I've just received some information that is pertinent to this discussion, and I think it needs to be shared. You should know that when we visited Sweden with Tuttle, Chris C may have had 2 minor bumps on the way to and from the airport from underestimating how long it would take to stop on icy roads. Do what you want with this information.
Is that our producer being clever?
And that's why you want one of Mr. Cooper's son's mobile telephone numbers. Oh, brilliant. So
I did actually have a slight whoopsie in a downhill hairpin, and I thought we're going to end up in somebody's kitchen.
I think, I tell you what I'd do. I would live by your wits when the weather's like this. It's like when it's very foggy or it's standing water or there's snow. These are conditions not only that you don't normally drive in, but your vehicle probably isn't that used to either. And so if you've got a bit of a sort of jolt down your spine that you should just slow down, you're worried, I'd take that and I'd double it. And however fearful it makes you, work with that fear and go even further. Because the one thing about the modern motor car is it isolates you from the outside so much that you're almost always going too fast, should you have to sort the problem out that's about to happen. And that's the bit that I find quite shocking. And we've all had it. I've done that, like Mr. Cooper, years ago, being up near somewhere in Sweden. And you get so comfortable going along a straight road. You think, well, there's no elk here. You think I'm doing 70 miles an hour. But if someone said to you, stop it now at 70 miles an hour, you'd be horrified
Just
how
take
long it takes to stop and where you'd end up. So I think, you just got to be aware of the fact that I drove up towards into Wales today, and it was pretty slushy and horrible up there. And occasionally in the outside lane, you went over some slush. Now, because I'm a lucky bastard, if the thing snaps sideways, I think I've got a reasonable chance of dealing with it, because that's what I've done professionally for most of my life. But I see other people around me doing the same thing, and I think if it snaps sideways now, I'm not sure you'd really know what to do. So yeah, it tends sadly to be less heroic than you think, and you just have to kind of go with what you can do. And if a local comes past you, flat chat, let them go, because they either don't care what happens to them, or they know something that you don't.
I've got one other.
Go on.
From my experience today, when you decide to take your wife to Bicester Heritage at 8 a.m, freezing cold, she doesn't want to go, but she's lovely, so she came with me. Have a cloth to wipe the inside of the car when it steams up, so you can't actually see where you're going.
Yeah.
Because you sort of, we were using my hat, her woolly glove, making it bloody worse. And all she said was, I'm feeling this is going to be a nightmare. We're going to break down, or we're going to have an accident. You can't fucking see. I can't fucking see. This is just terrible. Why are we doing this? So having a lot of vision is often just about being able to have a lovely little cloth to wipe the inside of the car, which is misted up so much that you think it's your glasses, then you do that and it's not your glasses. So yes, have a cloth.
Yeah.
I think also driving in snow is very small experiential thing, much better with a front wheel drive car. If it's going to be two wheels, than a rear wheel drive car.
Oh,
The
God.
engine's at the front. That's my really big thing.
Is
I've,
it?
I've scared myself a few times in other people's rear wheel drive cars with an engine at the front. It's
Front engine, rear wheel drive, automatic gearbox, open diff. That is the ultimate recipe for disaster. in something like an old E200, just fucking hopeless. You might as well get out and walk.
That reminds me of another one, just like Neil. I thought of another one that I thought about earlier on today. When it did snow a bit more in the UK than it does now, it might have been in one of my cherished 6 Series convertibles, 650 probably was. Big engine front, automatic gearbox, rear wheel drive. Crucially, with ABS.
right.
So you think, it was stop-start traffic, very snowy, somewhere near here in Hemel Hempstead. And I was, on one occasion, distinctly aware that even though I had my foot on the brake quite hard, the car was still moving forwards. Because the anti-lock brake, at some point with anti-lock brakes, you think about it, there's a curve and a graph in here. The anti-lock brake, the sensor's got to disconnect. Otherwise, in theory, the car would never stop, because it would always sense that the wheel's about to lock and it would unrelease it again. So what happened was the front wheels had locked, but the rear wheels hadn't, because the balance of brakes and all this kind of thing. And even in idle speed, it was enough to drive the car forward. And I thought, I'm going to hit the bloke in front. I've got my foot on the brake. Oh, shit. But I immediately had, from somewhere, the presence of mind to put the thing into neutral.
Yes.
On the automatic gear stick. And the sense of relief when it stopped just driving itself, seemingly without my command forward. So if you find yourself in a 650 convertible on a snowy occasion in Hemel Hempstead, just push that little lever into neutral. All will be well.
Yeah. Just don't get in one of those things, unless obviously you
wait until we get to $8,000 on the $8,000.
I know.
For next week.
The question would be: you got £8,000 and you want to look like Peter Mandelson. What do you buy?
That's quite funny for you.
Let's move on. So, our 2-car garage for this week has a sporting bent. It is as follows: you are a 17-year-old who has just won the World Professional Darts Championship. Whoever saw it at the weekend,
Magic.
you have 500,000 well-publicised pounds to spend on your two-car garage. So Luke Littler, who's, I mean, the most extraordinary, just amazing. I'm sure many of you watched it. I did. Two cars. Chris Cooper. Oh no, you've just spoken, Chris Cooper. Neil with an I. You can go next.
Okay. I've really actually thought hard about this. And I did read also that he said, you know what, 500 grand's amazing, but I didn't know I won 200 grand last year and I've still got it.
Yeah. He gets an allowance from his parents, doesn't he?
Yeah. So I was thinking, well, actually, he's either got parents that are spending it all and he doesn't know, or let's hope it's not that, or he's actually relatively careful. You know, they're careful with their money. So actually, even though he's won 500 grand, I'm not going to spend all his 500 grand.
Yeah.
Because I've actually got two great ideas, which frankly is 100 grand that is enough. It's all he's going to need. Now, I also thought he's 17. Not sure if he's passed his test.
He's learning. He's learning right now.
He's learning. So there's insurance. You know, he probably needs 500 grand for the insurance. We go and buy him an F40. Or clearly, we can't get him an F40. But, you know, so be relatively sensible. Because, A, it's his first car and we don't want him to die because we want him to be a world champion for many years.
Yep.
But also, you don't really want to spend 30 grand on insurance because it would be, again, a bit extravagant. It doesn't sound like...
Are you actually Chris Cooper wearing a Neil Clifford mask?
Yeah, no. This is all good. I'm going to be a consultant. I've decided, and tell other people what to do, and then leave and never have to care about it ever again.
You come out on a day with me, sunshine.
Yeah, we have lots of experience of that in my job, but obviously they're very clever consultants. And also, the last bit of thought I put to this: he lives near the Peak District. He's a Manchester boy.
Yeah.
So what car would be wonderful to just zoom out of Manchester South and down to Buxton and all of that malarkey, and or you could go up a bit and go across the North Wales. So he wants something with a bit of zip on B roads. So, okay, my monologue is finished. I'm buying me a new Yaris GR.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I think when you're young as well, you like the whole Japanese thing.
Yeah.
You're going to take it down to Lichfield. You're going to put an exhaust on it. You're going to make it pop and bang, but you can afford the insurance. There's no faster car in the bloody Peak District than a Yaris. And by the way, this is real truth. I looked it up. Guess what the speedo goes up to?
160.
180.
Oh.
180. So
what?
brilliant, absolutely bloody perfect. And then the other car he's going to buy is not for himself, because when you're 17, who's the most important person in your life?
Your mum.
Your mum. You're buying your mum a car.
Yeah.
And what's the perfect mum car? It's a 911 991 Targa.
Yeah.
Because it has got slightly feminine connotations, the Targa, even though we all love the Targa. It's a fantastic car for your mum. And I know a really great one, PTS. I'm not going to describe it because I might buy it my bloody self. But actually, I found it and it's really good. A Targa 4 for the weather up in Manchester, 991 PTS. That's it. He's got 400 grand left. You won't beat that.
You've really thought about this. I love it. There we go. Two lovely choices. Ed and Pandy, what are you going to have?
Well, my reasoning, because I think we are descending into kind of 2 years of groupthink here, was exactly that. He's 17 years old and uninsurable. And some of the newspapers actually told you what winning £500,000 actually amounts to as take-home pay. Yeah. 230,000 in tax and 12,000 in national insurance. So this boy's paid £242,000. He only has 258,000 left. So I'm with Neil. I just don't think he spends the money. And I looked up the top 10 cars for 17-year-olds who have just passed their driving test. And I don't know. It's Clio Fabia, Hyundai i10, Peugeot 208. But the one that I decided to go for, because I like the name, and I think it's just going to be great, it's £20,000. It's just under £20,000. He can get a Kia Picanto, the GT line with the 1.2 litre engine, and he'll have to have a little black box. I think he's just going to have that, and I would in the back, because they monitor your driving. You know, this is a long-term thing for Luke. This isn't just one car,
No.
and I think he should get the thing in red, black, and a bit of yellow. I think that's what he should do. He can decide where he wants that little bit of yellow. He's got his floating dartboard, so he's now got £200,000 left. And I think he has a one-car garage. That's what I think he does. I think he puts the rest of the money in with his parents and he gets a good deposit on a home. That is what I would do if this was my 17-year-old darts.
Okay. I think I like the sound of this. Chris Cooper, where are you going with this?
I was going to say, Manish, there's only one word for what you've just said. Magic darts.
Oh, magic darts.
Sid Waddell, he was, to those outside the UK, he was the voice of darts. Up to about 10 years ago, wasn't he? And these amazing one-liners, one of which was, there's only one word for that, magic darts. He's as happy as a penguin in a microwave, presumably not very happy.
Yeah.
When Alexander of Macedonia, Alexander the Great, for those less literate, classically, was 33, he cried salt tears because there were no more worlds to conquer. Eric Bristow's only 27.
That was a great one. That was just the best ever.
So I'm sort of on similar lines to the guys. So he's got a Ford Focus at the moment, Mr. Littler. And he said, I would like an A-class Merc. Slight upgrade, not going too fast. So I think the first part of our two-car garage is guiding him on the best A-class to buy. And I think it's a petrol A-class. And it's either a 180 or a 200. I reckon 200. I think you can afford an A200. So I think an A200. And then a bit like, I think we're on the same lines here in some respects. He's got a big entourage, family, extended family. So I think he needs a 9-seater vehicle as the second vehicle in his two-car garage. You've seen more bloody Mercedes Viano Vito people carriers to last him a lifetime. Luke, we can do better than that.
Yes.
Chevy Suburban. I think the world's latest, newest, youngest world darts champion should be seen with his entourage in nothing less than a 25 model year Chevy Suburban. Those two cars together are about 100 grand.
They're good cars.
Good cars.
Yeah. I think actually there's an occasional series, Mr. H, that could flow from this, which is us giving our considered advice to any new, younger world champion in a sport.
Recently enriched young'uns that need car advice.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so I think we're all on the same sort of track, but I think you've all missed an obvious way of displaying how much you love the game of darts and how much you were concentrating on the game at the weekend. So for me, it is two cars. I think he has to allow himself some flamboyance here, because I think he's a modest guy, but he knows he's going to make some money now. He really is.
Yeah.
He's not a Raducanu. I don't think he's going to choke. He's won the big one, and I think he's shown. Yeah. So I don't think he needs to squirrel away this money. I think he can be a little bit more reckless with it. So the first thing he has to do is buy a Ferrari. Yeah, you have to buy a Ferrari, don't you? And it's not a Ferrari he's going to drive, but he's consulted with a car podcast that knows about such things. He's got the arrows out, that knows about such things, and he's asked the person who, the sort of putative leader of that podcast, not that I want to call myself a leader, and said, "What car would you buy? What's the best investment car?" And I said it's a 458 Spider by a mile. I said it's an unbiased opinion. I don't know why I'd say that.
Very unbiased.
The clever money would be on one. I'd probably go Grigio Titanio as well.
Yeah.
I think that's where the clever money is. So he's bought one of those.
200 grand.
It's in the shed. He's not going to drive it. His mum can drive it if she wants. Uncle Billy can drive it. They can do what they want. He can't drive it himself. His own car, there's only one car he should have, and you should all have chosen this. It's a Hyundai i20N. I'll tell you why. It's just about insurable, but if you watch that match, That was his checkout, wasn't it? Double 10 every single time.
Yeah.
He needs a 20
Yes,
somewhere in the name
yes,
of his
yes.
car because he
Check
was
out.
that double 10 was his checkout on 10 on
Ooh.
double 10 was lethal,
Yeah.
razor sharp. So I thought to myself, it's got to be. I looked for every car with 20, and I thought Hyundai makes a thing called the i20N. It has to be one of those.
You didn't go
That was your nine dart
MC20.
finish, wasn't it?
I didn't go MC20. No,
No,
because we don't want him to lose 100 grand the moment he sneezes on it, do we?
no, no.
So I think, yes, a 458 Spider, Grigio Titanium, maybe with sort of Sabio, a lighter interior, I think is better than residuals. And then I think an i20N as well.
Yeah.
Who would like to choose some music?
I've got some music.
Go on. Why don't you go first?
I've been watching recently. It's a very good series. I think it's on Paramount Plus. It's The Agency. It's a CIA spy thing that's set in London. And the theme music, it reminded me, it's a U2 song from Achtung Baby, I think, recovered by Jack White. Love is Blindness by Jack White is a stonking tune for the car.
There you go. Can't disagree. Anne, what are you going to go for?
Well, I listened to this on my kind of annual pilgrimage to Oxford and back a couple of times. It's the whole album is actually by Michael Nyman, and it's from the film The Draftsman's Contract. And the track you should listen to is "The Garden is Becoming a Robe Room," and it's the most beautiful piece of music this time of year.
Jesus Christ. I'm trying to write these down. I always write down managers because I go and scurry and listen to them straight away afterwards. The Garden is Becoming a Robe Room.
I love it.
Neil, it should be Neil with an E, but Neil with an I. What are you going to be?
I was trying to think about the 2000s, the era of the 2000s, because it's a bit of a black hole for me for music. I don't know whether it was because I just had kids, I was working too hard. It's like a blank. It's like a black hole. The 2000s, and because I can name a million songs from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't know what happened to me in the 2000s. I'm such a boring bastard, basically. But I remembered one song, Kings of Leon.
Yeah.
Use Somebody.
Yeah.
One of the tracks for me of the 2000s, and it's a great driving track as well. Kings of Leon are really good. Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
So I got up reasonably early this morning and did a bit of YouTubing on the thing on the TV. So I had some music while I was making the eggs, and Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm apolitical, but Proud Mary. When that gets going, I think
That's
that
a
might
good
be one of
song,
the
that.
best. That must be one of the best rock tunes of the 70s, wasn't it? It's absolutely outrageously brilliant tune.
Yeah.
And it also works in a motor vehicle, as we need for this particular subject. So I think that draws episode number, wait for it, Chris Cooper, do you want to say it?
No, 19.
He's been waiting to do that for so long. It brings that one to a close. We look forward to having you join us for episode 20. We have got plans for this year, by the way. There's going to be some live shows, not too many. There's going to be some guests, and there might even be some swag, some apparel that we're having made as well. So if you want to wear a shirt that says "Fuck Bitcoin, buy 996," you can wear that in front of your family or the public. Stay with us.
There is
have a lovely weekend.
in there somewhere. We have a strategy somewhere. It's coming up.
There's no strategy here. One last thought. A friend of mine and someone who is it's difficult to comprehend his bravery and his skill, actually. James Hillier, who's an Isle of Man TT rider. You might have seen him having a fantastic time trial dice with John McGuinness in the senior this year. He fell off yesterday and hurt himself, broke his nose. I think it looks like he's in pain, but he's carrying on because he's one of the strongest, toughest people I've ever met. So on behalf of all of us, James, keep pushing. You are quite a remarkable human being, and I don't know how you do it. So it's a big thank you from me, Chris Harris, Neil Clifford with an I, Ed Manish Pandey, and Chris Cooper. Thank you. Goodbye.